Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. It's going to be a great podcast today. We've got a guest, Ryan McKellen. He is going to talk about vintage bourbon. He's going to talk about baseball, football, collectible cards, and he's also got a one-day business solution that we're going to talk about. So stay tuned. I think you're going to enjoy today's episode of Todd's podcast. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Todd's podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. We got an interesting guest today. His name is Ryan McKellen. Some people casually collect hobbies. Ryan apparently looked at life and decided to speedrun every Elite Dad passion pack available. He's a man who treats life like a live auction, where the only rule is talk louder and somehow win anyway. A Florida-based chaos creator, he operates at the intersection of high-stakes deals, rare finds, and dangerously confident decision-making. If there's a sealed box within a 50-mile radius, he can sense it. If there's a deal to be made, he's already halfway through negotiating it before your sentence. By day, he's building empires like one-day business solutions while simultaneously wielding sports cards like a Wall Street trader who replaced stocks with a PSA 10 and Jordan inserts. By night, the former wedding singer and entertainer has arrived for his next sultry performance of whatever the crowd wants to hear and loves every second of it. Eli, I don't think we've ever said sultry on this podcast. This is really going to be interesting. When he's not negotiating over cardboard treasures, he's hunting rare bourbon like a Kentucky archaeologist. The man can identify tasting notes that nobody has ever asked for. I'm getting hints of toasted oak, dark cherry, leather-bound books, and financial irresponsibility. I like it. His bourbon shelf looks less like a collection and more like a museum exhibit protected by motion sensors and prayers. Before all this, he spent 15 years dominating the jewelry industry because apparently mastering one luxury market wasn't enough. Diamonds, gold, Rolexes, rare bourbon, sports card. At this point, if it appreciates in value, Ryan probably has a spreadsheet on it. And I can tell you, Eli appreciates in value every time he comes in and does this, so I'd be interested in looking at your spreadsheet.
I love it.
But somewhere between bourbon pours, golf swings, and late-night card deals, the heart of the man shows up. He genuinely loves helping people, giving back to the community, and supporting whenever he can. Philanthropy isn't a side quest for him, it's part of the mission. In golf, it's less of a hobby and more of a lifelong emotional support system. One day he's draining birdie putts like he's qualifying for the PGA Tour, and the next he's explaining to everyone within earshot that'll listen, hey, these greens were running a little fast today. Through all the chaos, the collecting, the hustling, the business dealings, the business building and business dealings, and chasing the next rare bottle of Grail card, the most important thing in his world has always stayed the same, which is his family. He's a proud husband, proud father, the kind of guy who would move mountains for the people he loves. Then he'd celebrate afterwards with a small batch pour and a perfectly centered rookie card. Most importantly, Ryan knows none of it happens without the grace of God. Every blessing, every opportunity, every success, and every lesson gets rooted back to faith, gratitude, and staying grounded through it all. In summary, Ryan's part entrepreneur, part bourbon outlaw, part sports cards degenerate, part golf addict, part philanthropist, part family man, and still somehow he's functioning on approximately 3 hours of sleep and pure competitive energy. I met him a couple of weeks ago. Like I said, we had a great time. Ryan has also created the one-day business solution, which we'll discuss a little bit later on in the show. And when we were talking about the intro, he says, I've got one for you. And this was created by ChatGPT Unhinged Bio. And I read it and I said, well, this is different. So if you like this type of intro, let us know, folks. But Ryan McKellen, come on and welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here.
Todd, thank you so much for the introduction. ChatGPT, thank you so much for the Unhinged Bio. I appreciate that because those are your words, not mine, but I couldn't have said it any better. So certainly appreciate it.
I wish I could have said it a little bit better. I stumbled with some of those words because it's not exactly how I talk, but it was very interesting how they come up with those things. How did you get to Polk County?
Polk County, that was back in 2020, Todd. We were brought in by International Diamond Center. We moved from Texas, brought our entire family here. and I took over as the general manager of International Diamond Center. One of the things that brought me to Polk County, I think, was the attention to philanthropy, to community. That really resonated with me. And I knew that going into this particular role where we were opening up a location here, it was going to be an incredible quest. It was going to be a beautiful mission. That's something I wanted to see through. I spent 5 years with International Diamond Center. Over that time, I participated on several boards of directors. I have attended over 172 events in Polk County during that time, and spent a lot of time networking with some amazing people. So it's been an absolute blessing. We have found home. Polk County is where we're going to be for a very long time.
It's a great place to live.
It is.
Is the International Diamond Center, is that a franchise or a multiple location company, or was it just here in Lakeland?
I believe currently there's 12 locations.
Okay.
They base out of Clearwater. It's an incredible company. They do so much good for the communities that they put their stores in and beyond. However, I'm no longer with the company. It's been about a year now since we parted ways and decided to kind of go a different direction, try some new endeavors. But I do think that they are a wonderful company, and I'm really glad that they're here in Lakeland, spreading good cheer and showing great jewelry to people.
One of the things I found very interesting when we were talking at the gala the other evening was that you're a rare bourbon collector.
Yes, I am.
And I mentioned it to Eli, and Eli saying, hey, maybe we can have some free samples brought in, but that didn't happen. So I'll take you out for a snort here or there. But what is a rare bourbon collector? What makes a bourbon rare?
It's a very loaded question, and I think that you don't get...
Eli's half loaded now anyway.
Perfect. So then we're on
the road.
Start.
We're on a good road.
Yeah, we're on a good road here. Thanks, Eli. So becoming a rare bourbon collector usually starts with the first bottle. It's that first bottle that makes an impact on you when you're trying this out. And I haven't been doing this very long, but about 5-6 years ago is when I really started drinking bourbon, because I was making changes to my life where I was like, oh, I don't want to drink, 10 Captain and Cokes, or I don't want to drink 3 glasses of wine, because I feel like they affect you different ways.
Right.
I wanted to get into basically a spirits choice that allowed me to have it be a little bit more prestigious, a little bit more simple, something that you can nurse a little bit and just enjoy over time. A 2-ounce pour of bourbon can last me an hour and a half.
Wow.
Okay, I really enjoy sipping on it. So the first bottle that I drank that made me go wow was an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C923. That was the barrel number for that particular release. And for anybody who's a bourbon enthusiast, they know that particular bottle probably holds a very special place in their heart, because it tastes so much different than most of their releases. And it's still to this day very difficult to come across. And if you have it, it costs you a lot of money to acquire one.
Right.
So I loved it so much that I started searching out different flavors and different tastes and learning what creates an amazing bourbon and where they come from. And the more you associate with people, the more you network with people, the more you start to learn that, boy, there is a lot to the bourbon industry.
Right.
And I've just been very blessed that I've met a lot of amazing people through it. I've met a lot of new friends, and my palate has been very opened up by this industry.
Do you prefer it over ice, or do you prefer it straight, just in a glass without ice, or a mixer? I'm assuming you don't use mixers in yours.
Yeah, no, we won't be adding ginger ale to anything, but probably...
Sorry, Brenda. She drinks hers with Diet Coke. Brenda was our guest on the last episode.
There you go.
Yeah.
So no, I would put ginger ale with probably something like a Buffalo Trace.
Okay.
Which is simple. It's low proof.
That was Nick's drink. Nick was our undercover sheriff's deputy drug dealer for us, and he came on a year or so ago.
Very good. Very good.
Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, so that it's really unique to try it different ways. I think that, yes, you use ice occasionally. I think that when you have a spirit that is too high in proof, where it's very spicy, very hot as it enters the palate, what you're going to notice is that you probably wish you had toned it down slightly.
Okay.
Because you're going to have that instant reaction of maybe a little cough or something like that. So I always put like a super tiny piece of ice in something that's too high proof. Otherwise, you do it straight. Just give it a little swirl, give it a little nose, make sure it opens up a little bit first, because the first pour is usually the most difficult pour. And as it opens up, it becomes more and more catered to your palate.
So when you say the proof is what makes it a little harsher to your throat, or is that what you mean by
Yes.
just a little ice that smooths it out just a little bit? Is that what you're referencing, or those of us?
Yes. The higher the proof, the more the heat.
Okay.
So what you're going to notice, the more heat and spice would be what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And 140 proof and up is considered hazmat. Okay, so that is considered like the second you put that in your mouth, it's like fire. So you want to be very cautious of drinking those types of proofs. Most bourbons that you're going to have are going to fall between 95 and like 110.
Wait, are they selling very much of the 140 proof and above? Or
There's so few
does
produced.
it have like a skull and two crossbones on it or something?
It probably should, just like the pack of a cigarette. But no, they will not do that, but they will give you a warning label and tell you exactly what it is. So
what makes it rare? Is it the fewer number of bottles that are out on the market? Is that what makes it rare? I'm sure the demand has something to do.
Yes. Yes. So the demand has so much to do with it. And every year there's certain bottles people chase. That is very, that's part of the fun is kind of being on that hunt and that quest to figure out how can I attain these bottles. There are people that spend way too much time trying to acquire them. I'm not one of those people, believe it or not. I create relationships.
Okay.
So the more time I spend creating relationships, I get phone calls saying, you've invested in me, you've invested in my business, and I appreciate it. Here's the least I could do for you. And then we come up with a fair deal to acquire nice bottles. But it's been a huge investment,
right,
to say the least. And I'm just excited to have a collection like I have. Currently, I have over 600 bottles.
Wow.
Sitting at home, and it's all libraried and categorized, and it's beautiful to look at.
You have a backlit and like a man cave or something where only you get to go, and your wife comes in once a week just when it's time for that, or?
Well, she comes in daily and tells me to tone it down. She's really good about that, but she's actually been a staunch supporter. She's been great, and she loves to participate when I have, a small tasting.
Good.
And I think it's just been a great overall, like just everything from networking to meeting new friends.
New people.
It's kind of the ultimate connector, and it's the other things that I do in my life really work hand in hand with the bourbon.
Right.
Yeah.
Does she like the same type bourbons that you do, or is she like something a little smoother or a little higher proof, hotter, spicier?
Sure. Yeah, I find that we have slightly different palates,
Okay.
As most people do. The enthusiasts and I have a tendency to really have the same flavor palettes. But my wife, she likes certain stuff, and I make sure that I have plenty of that on hand to keep the wife happy.
So 600 bottles, are they all opened? Have you tried them all, or are you saving some for special people, or are most of them like, hey, these are collector's items, I'm not?
That's a great question, and it's a mix of everything you just said.
Okay.
So there are some that I have no desire to open ever, that I will probably just hang on to them until I'm one of the only people in the world that has that bottle. At that point, it's very special.
Right.
It's very rare, and you have so many options of what you can do with it. However, there are some bottles that I have reserved just for special occasions and for certain people that are going to enter my home.
Right.
A lot of people like to celebrate a deal with a great bottle of bourbon, and I'm going to have 150 different selections that could really commemorate something special that can happen. So I think it's just a lot of fun to go through your catalog. It's a lot of fun to organize it, to let people see it. It's a conversation piece every time somebody walks in my door, and it's just a great way to get started.
So if I'm not a bourbon drinker, and I'm not, if I came over and said, hey, Ryan, help me explore this world that you're living in, mm-hmm. would you recommend one of the rare bottles, or would you recommend something you could get at the ABC and just start slowly and then start working into the more rare bottles or the rare bottles?
Sure. The first question I would always have for you would be, who do you plan on sharing this with? So that's going to help me dictate whether you're going to be dealing with
Sarah and Aubrey. They're our resident drinkers, aren't they, Eli? Yeah, make sure they don't find out your address. They'll be in your backyard before you know it.
I welcome everybody. It's okay.
Not these two.
Perfect. Thanks for the warning.
They surround Eli out front. They're 2/3 of the devil's triangle.
Yeah, you want to always find out who's going to be drinking with you, right? So if it's a novice, you don't want to open a $300, $400, $500 bottle.
You can't appreciate it.
Well, they won't appreciate it the same way. No, and that's okay. So you want to make sure you have a good selection of everything for everybody. So it's been great. Really, just learning kind of and also advancing people's palates to explain really what the fun in all of it is. And we've just really been lucky to meet amazing people through this that have entered our lives, changed the course of our lives, supported us, and are now regular friends because of bourbon.
Todd's podcast is sponsored in part by Saunders Real Estate, your trusted partner in land and commercial real estate since 1996. With over 125 expert advisors located throughout the Southeast United States, the full-service brokerage specializes in a wide range of property types from farms and ranches to commercial buildings and development land. If you're looking to build your legacy with a confident investment, please visit SaundersRealEstate.com or call 877-518-5263 to connect with an advisor today. Is there a large collectors group, people with like minds, like similarities in the Lakeland, the Polk County area that, I don't know if it's a club or not, but at least your group of friends that say, hey, come over, I just got this rare bottle of X, Y, or Z?
Absolutely, yes. They've created things like Lakeland Whiskey Society, which is a really, really great a great organization to be a part of. There's really great people in charge of it. Shout out to my buddy LJ, who does an amazing job running Lakeland Whiskey Society.
All right, LJ.
Way to go, LJ. But there is so many people who play a great role in it, and I just got to say, I've met so many friends through Lakeland Whiskey Society where our palates have a tendency to work together. Right. Our interests, our common ground interests are very, very similar. A lot of these, there's frozen iguanas. There's all these different Tampa Bay bourbon communities and all these different communities all over the place. And they hold a lot of tastings and they do single barrel picks and releases and things like that they get everybody to be a part of. So it's a way to bring a lot of people together all at once and support something special.
Is it more fun to drink a bottle or have a tasting with people who are like you that can appreciate what they're doing, or do you find as much, if not more, or maybe less satisfaction with introducing someone to it and watching them go, wow, this is really good? Who do you like to drink with?
I really like to drink with people who have a similar interest as what I do to the industry. I believe bottle sharing is so common. Bottle sharing is something like if I was to call you, Todd, and say, hey, I've got 6 or 7 guys coming over tonight and we're going to have a little tasting. Every one of those guys that I know is probably bringing a bottle that they love because they want us to try it. Okay. So I know that I'm going to be tasting some of the best stuff that's on the market if I'm inviting a group of people over. But there's going to be laughs. There might be a cigar. There might be, we might be talking about other things that we do in life and networking all at the same time. So we support each other, and it's brilliant.
Does it help to have a cigar? I mean, I don't, help's probably the wrong word to say, but does it enhance the enjoyment, or do you dip your cigar in it like I've seen some people do? Or is it, hey, that's just so you look cool holding a cigar while you're drinking?
To each their own. Yeah. But definitely having a cigar can enhance some of the notes of bourbon for sure. They just pair beautifully. Bourbon and cigar nights are very common. You'll see a lot of events that are done in Polk County even have that have philanthropy tied to it. They do a special bourbon tasting, a special bourbon and whiskey and cigar night or something like that. Yeah. People pay big money to go to these events. There's a lot of people who do donations of, big bottles, and they auction them off and things like that. I've done my own. You were at the last event we were just at. I donated over a $3,500 collection in a private tasting that was straight from my collection. I did that at the Polk State Gala. It raised a lot of money.
Good.
So it's
thank you.
Pleasure. Yeah, I'm happy to do it always.
So what are the additives? What makes a bourbon? You had mentioned proof, but is it Is it aroma? Is it the age? Is it the ingredients? What's the main ingredient in bourbon that makes it so special?
Yeah, it's a very unique process that it goes through. And without getting too detailed into it, I will tell you that a lot of the flavor actually comes from the barrel itself. So when you are creating, we'll just call it straight bourbon whiskey. Okay, straight bourbon whiskey has to be made from 51% corn, okay, for it to be called a bourbon. Has to be aged in new charred oak barrels. That's a rule by U.S. law. It has to be distilled at no more than 160 proof, and it has to enter the barrel at no more than 125 proof. Okay? It has to contain no additives or color or flavor to be labeled straight bourbon.
So it comes in clear.
You could
Clearish.
say clear-ish.
Okay.
But it develops. So over time, the age, and so on. There's so many factors that determine how that taste is going to end up in the end. It is very hard to quality control. That's why there's so many incredible distillers across the world that have master distillers and so on, and they watch it like it's their baby, you know? And they watch those barrels almost daily. But it is incredible. The barrel itself actually gives most of the flavor to the bourbon. So once it has, let's say you're in a warm climate, okay? If you're in a warm climate, you're going to notice that the flavor, the bourbon actually expands into the barrels more. When it's a colder climate, it retracts. Okay. So the more it gets into the barrel, the more that you actually absorb the notes of what's in the barrel.
Does that darken the color more too because of
the longer it's in there?
The char of the wood?
Yes, the longer it's in the barrel, what you're going to notice is you're going to get more of the dark caramel, the tobacco, the antique oak, the deeper fruits, deep spices, things like that. Whereas if you do not, you're going to get something that's much more toned down, but maybe a little bit more syrupy, and also kind of. You're not going to get quite the flavor that you would get. You're going to get a lighter color too.
Well, how do you increase the proof of something? You say it's got to start at a minimum 120 and it can't be more than 160 or 165. How do you raise the proof of something once it's corked in a barrel?
Sometimes you can't. It's because there's Mother Nature running its course on whatever barrel you're in. Temperature, like I said before, is a big deal. Climate is a big deal. Where it sits in a rick house. So a rick house is where all the barrels sit. And depending on if it's on the top of the rick house versus the bottom of the rick house, has a huge play in how much proof the bourbon barrel will get.
Sitting
in
the same warehouse, or just the height of where they are on the racking system.
Yes,
like you said, the rick
and
house.
if you've ever seen a rick house, which a lot of people haven't in their life, you could be talking 6, 7, 8 stories high of barrels and barrels and barrels, and they're layered like a warehouse. We've all been in warehouses and seen what that's like. It's the same thing with bourbon. And it's really a unique process that it goes through, and how different from the top to the bottom produces. So I think that it's just such an interesting hobby. It's an interesting hobby. It's an interesting thing to collect. It's an interesting thing to talk about and to taste. And they're not all created equal. Right. They're all very different.
What are some of the more popular distilleries that are? Do you like American bourbon can bourbon be from another country, or is bourbon specific to the U.S.?
No, bourbon is specific to the U.S.
Okay.
So it has to be made in the U.S. for it to be considered bourbon.
Okay.
And there are some very popular distilleries that are out there. However, most everybody thinks it only comes from like Kentucky.
Right.
Okay. Kentucky does produce 95% of the world's bourbon.
Really?
Yes, which is crazy.
Way to go, Kentucky.
Yeah. And I mean, that will slowly change. There will be market share taken away from them because of the popularity of the hobby. So you've got, for instance, in Tennessee, you have Jack Daniel's. Okay, so that's where their distillery is. That's where they produce that. In Texas, you've got Garrison Brothers. In Ohio, you have Watershed Distillery. In Indiana, you've got MGP. MGP creates incredible product. I'm getting excited. I'm like juicing. I'm jonesing over here for like a pour. But as I talk about it,
We have something bad in the back. I'm not sure what it is. It's not that water you're drinking, I can assure you.
I know it's not the water. But yeah, that's just an example. I mean, Colorado has Stranahan's, and High West is in Utah. So there's distilleries that are popping up all over the country. Some very popular ones, and Kentucky, has the biggest ones. You've got Buffalo Trace. You've got Heaven Hill, Four Roses, Wild Turkey. Some great distilleries.
So one of the questions I was going to ask you is about tariffs and if they affect the price, but do tariffs, they shouldn't have any effect on us if bourbon is all a United States product.
Yeah, short version of the tariffs is that they affect exports more than anything.
More than production.
Not so much the bourbon drinker here in the U.S. There was a couple increases that happened due to, materials.
Right.
Corks and glass and things like that would come from that were imported and exported. So I would say other than that, though, you've actually seen a slightly softened market, if anything, because during COVID and that time, everything was at a peak, especially the bourbon prices, right?
Right.
As time has evolved and so many new things have been introduced to take up people's attention, bourbon has softened, and the prices have actually come down on a lot of product. So you can get higher quality bourbon for less money now than you used to get it several years ago.
Do you have to have a license to be a collector or to sell it? Or like if Eli or I said, hey, let's start collecting some bourbon so we could start tasting and we could start a collection with ourselves? And I don't have to have a license, or do you have to have a license to do certain things?
Oh, no, you can collect all you want and definitely enjoy that as much as you'd like. There's a whole different set of rules for things like selling it.
Okay.
And different routes that you would need to go through, different channels that you would need to go through in order to do that. But so many people acquire bourbons from different online stores. There are... really, and they dictate their own price.
Okay.
So what costs you $150 in a Publix potentially? Now, good luck finding it because it won't be there for probably more than 2 minutes.
Right.
Okay. What could cost you $150 at your local Publix would cost you potentially $1,500 to acquire through like some type of an online site.
The same bottle.
Same bottle.
The same bourbon inside the bottle.
Same exact bourbon, same exact bottle. Nothing's different. But it's just there's scarcity and rarity.
Okay.
And you'll just never see it if you don't buy it for that price.
What's the most you've ever paid for a bottle? Can I ask you that?
Oh boy, most I've ever paid for a bottle, $6,000.
Do you still have it?
Absolutely.
Is that one that you're going to hang on to forever, or is
Yes.
that one you share with special family and friends?
That is one I'll be hanging on to forever.
Good for you.
But I have been fortunate and lucky enough to come across some massive bottles. Double Eagle, very rare. Michter's 20s, which are very, very scarce and rare. Pretty much every BTAC bottle you've ever seen. Eagle Rare 17. There's a brand new E.H. Taylor BTAC, which is Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. So that's a new addition to this year's line.
Is that an expensive bottle?
Yes, it is.
Nick is not getting that next time he comes on the show.
Right, he is not getting that.
No, he's not getting that.
So that bottle will, it's only $150, $200 if you buy it regular, but if you can't find it, it's going to cost you $1,000.
Well, how do you find these? I mean, it sounds like there's a collectors group that does this, and you just have your friends that turn you on, or you just spend a lot of time searching online and then Google's your friend. Is that kind of the best way to do it?
As I mentioned earlier, I focus on relationships to acquire my bottles. So for me, it's more of just an investment in small business, I guess you could say. And that's important to me that I'm, supporting small business. I don't mind paying more for a bottle. I'll pay what's called fair price. I have no problem paying fair price.
Right.
I don't want to pay the above secondary price, the gouge your eyes out price. I'm not trying to do that. But I really do enjoy acquiring really nice bottles at very fair prices, and I will spend the money.
Does price really reflect on the quality?
No.
So if you tasted bourbon and say, God, I can't believe they paid that much for this, or you're like, wow, this is some of the best tasting stuff I've ever had. It's so smooth.
just being really transparent,
Yeah.
there are so many bottles out there that are $100 to $200 that taste every bit as good as one that's $2,000.
Wow.
So it just comes down to status. It comes down to a special gift, whatever it might be that just triggers you. But everybody has their thing, right? So
Right.
I mean, the same reason we all drive Lexus versus Toyota.
Right.
Like there's a market for all of it.
Hello, everybody. This is Jerry Lane, former Major League Baseball umpire for the past 35 years. I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. I hope it was interesting. You got to pick up a few things you didn't quite understand, but I think that you're going to be excited with some new episodes coming up, and you won't be disappointed. Thanks again for tuning in.
So when we were talking last week about getting ready for the podcast, you said there's a group for everything. Mm-hmm. What else do you collect? You do sports cards,
yes,
and other memorabilia. What are some of the other things that you collect, and is that a parallel interest, or did you start with bourbon and now you're doing that, or start with something else and now you're focusing on bourbon?
It's funny. I started the sports card thing I would say less than a year ago. So once IDC and I separated, it was what can I do with my life to create a stable living situation for my family and thrive. And the key for me was figuring out what are my passions, what doesn't feel like work. And I thought it was important that I figured out what a few of those things were, and then just took it on, just full bore forward and see what we do. And sports cards is something I've always had a passion for. There's a lot of nostalgia involved in sports cards and memorabilia and things like that. Obviously, you would know, who are some of your favorite sports athletes?
Right. Well, we had Otis Birdsong on. He was one of them. I was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan in the 70s. And I was never one of I never wanted to collected a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
We played a lot of sports, and that was just not what we put our money and our interest in. I'd rather have a nice tennis racket than someone else's tennis racket.
Sure. And everybody, the thing about sports cards and memorabilia is that it seems like everybody that I talk to, no matter what, has a story. They've got some sitting in an attic
Mm-hmm.
that it was their grandfather's, and then it was their father's, or most people have regret because most people sit there and go, oh my gosh, I had that Mickey Mantle when I was a kid and I put it in the spokes of my bicycle and
Right.
I drew, I ripped it to shreds, that Joe DiMaggio or whatever it was. And, you have a great conversation about who your favorite athletes were and what cards that you had. And there's always regret when I talk to people about those things.
So one of the things that we collected, not so much like what you're doing, is my brothers and I, all the boys in our neighborhood, we all got to be bat boys for the Boston Red Sox when they came to Winter Haven for spring training. And we would always get their broken bats. So we'd have Rico Petrocelli, Carl Yastrzemski, Jim Rice.
Yeah.
And the best thing was when you got to bat boy for the opposing team, the visiting team, because you got bats that cracked for the people that you didn't get to see all the time. And, people said, give me a Cesar Cedeno broken bat, or I want this. And, some years ago, they were just sitting in a closet, an outside closet. They were all broken. We'd taped them up and we'd put nails in them and we'd play with them. And my mom just said she was tired of looking at them, and she threw them out a few years ago. Who knows whether some of them have been really valuable. I mean, none of them were in good shape, but they had their, names on them, none like Babe Ruth, but, the players that played in the 60s and 70s and 80s when we were paying attention. So we did collect some of that stuff, and that was a big deal to the boys in our neighborhood.
Yep. And I think for me, it was such a big part of my childhood, it was a huge part of my childhood. And then at some point along the way, I just sold
cards or just memorabilia?
Cards, mainly cards.
Okay.
And I just, I enjoyed it so much. And then I sold it all over time. It just disappears. And we decided, hey, it was time to move on and be an adult, right? And do some career things. Well, I just realized that I could merge the two. I realized that, hey, yes, I'm an adult, but I also have the ability to make this a business. So I really looked around. I went to a lot of card shows. I tried to observe the things that I thought people were doing right, the things that people were doing wrong. I tried to look at where the opportunity was to enter the industry at such an advanced state at this point. At 45 years old now, it's like, and I'm just starting in this industry. I've been very blessed to be able to grow it in a short time to something that could be a full-time job. Just that alone. I stream on Whatnot. So for those of you who know what Whatnot is, it's an app that you go on to.
Eli knows.
Tell
me later.
Yep. So if you want to follow my channel, you can certainly do that. My handle is RyanMCK60392. Have a little over 4,000 followers on there right now, 5 stars, and have sold an awful lot of product over time. On Whatnot, I sell a card every roughly 20 seconds.
Really?
Yes.
Do you actually possess them, or do you buy them and sell them and never take possession, or do you actually take possession and then repackage them and sell them? Is that how it's done in that collectible world?
Yeah. So the way I do it is personally, to make it a business, you have to be savvy,
right?
And that's being a step ahead, and it's working out deals and buying out people's collections. I'm buying out a collection probably every day or two.
Good Lord. Every
day or two. Some collections are very small. Some collections are a little bit bigger. And there's certain product I don't want to sell because it's not my lane, and I don't want to try to compete with people who do that so well.
Right.
So I find my lane, I focus on that stuff, and I run that type of stuff quickly to a community that supports it very well, and then I need a new collection.
Do you prefer, are they primarily almost all baseball cards? Do you venture into other sports?
Multi-sport, yes.
Okay.
So everything from baseball, football, basketball. There's even pickleball cards that I'm selling. I know it's crazy.
Wait, there's pickleball cards?
I know it's silly, but they have a market. So if it has a market, works for me.
Absolutely.
Yes, because not many other people are in a market like a pickleball card, right? So that's not going to happen very often. UFC cards, for instance, wrestling, boxers. I've got Mike Tyson autograph cards. I've got Floyd.
There's a group for everything.
There's a group for everything.
That was so
Todd.
prophetic. I mean, what do you prefer, one or the other, or did you start with baseball and that's kind of always been your back pocket thing that you like, or do you do it all just because that's where the business is?
Yeah, I think I prefer football. Just
really?
as a first choice and love. I'm a huge Chicago fan. I grew up in Chicago. I lived the first 20 years of my life in Chicago.
Okay.
I lived 20 years in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Never became a Cowboys fan, and that's just not going to happen.
They're overrated.
Yeah, let the circus continue in Dallas. But
the fans are overrated too.
I'm telling you, it's insane. It's insane. But I love my Bulls, my Blackhawks, my Cubs, my Bears, and they're near and dear to my heart, and always will be. We're on a pretty sweet win streak right now with the Cubs.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, man.
It's not bad.
Looking pretty good.
Do you acquire most of your stuff online, or do you like going to shows? What do you prefer?
Yeah, both actually. So I do acquire at shows. I don't do as many in-person shows. So I do far more streaming than I would do in-person shows. I have a lot of fun at the shows though, because it's a lot of fun to talk to people one-on-one.
Right.
And just listen to them and point them in the right direction of what they're looking for. Streaming's a lot of fun. I buy most of what I get online, and there's a trust factor that kicks in, just like buying anything online.
Right.
It's risky. But you just want to know your audience. You want to know who you're dealing with. You want to make sure people vouch for them, and then you can acquire something with relative ease
and confidence that you're getting.
And confidence.
That's got to be the biggest thing.
Yeah, the confidence that's a big thing.
Well, how do you authenticate photos or autographs or jerseys? I mean, people say, "Hey, I've got a Michael Jordan X or a Tiger Wood Y or whatever," and especially if you're doing it online, how do you know that was really Tiger's signature or Michael's or Eli's signature on his Maserati that he's parked out front?
So great.
He's grossly overpaid around here.
For sure.
Not just jelly.
For sure. Yes. And that's a really good question. So sports cards and memorabilia both go through a certification process or an authentication process that makes the signature or the jersey or the card more valuable. So, for instance, if I had a bunch of really impressive rare cards that really would gain a lot of value from being graded or authenticated, I would send them to a company called PSA. So PSA, you would send that off to them. You'd hope that it gets a high grade, obviously. A 10 is perfect. Okay. a 9 usually is kind of your like break even. Like you could still make money on a 9 and have it enhance in value, but anything much lower, you have a hard time recouping the price of the actual authentication and the grading service, because you're going to spend $40 per card just to send it out, and then it's going to there's shipping, and then you have the fees to sell it. It may not make any sense. So you really got to make sure you're selective about the cards that you do send out. Older cards, vintage cards, where there's like, Honus Wagners and Ty Cobbs and Mickey Mantles and those things, it doesn't matter what the grade is.
Right.
If it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it doesn't make a difference. You want that card graded for sure, just to prove that it's legit and it's not counterfeit.
Right.
That is very, very important. So today's stuff, you want to make sure it's a little bit more, you want to make sure that it's more strategic as to why you grade it and if it makes financial sense. The older stuff that's vintage and very scarce, you want to make sure that you get that graded.
So the newer stuff, the 9 or the 10, gives you a reasonable expectation that Michael Jordan did sign it, or LeBron did sign it, or Tiger, or whoever. Is that what you're doing by grading? Is that what you meant by the 9 or the 10?
They'll authenticate the signature for sure, and whether or not it's a legit, in this case of memorabilia, let's say that it's a legit print, or versus a facsimile or a replica. Okay. You want that sticker on there that says it's been witnessed and that it's been authenticated and so on. So I have a lot of really cool pieces. One of them is actually the first on print Tiger Woods photo of, it's a Tiger Woods lithograph that's first on print. And my goal is to have him autograph it. So I'm not sure how I'm going to get it to him yet, because it's like 28 by 40. It's like a mural. It's huge. And it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I've had it for years and years and years. It's on the 18th tee box at Augusta back when he won, one of his Masters.
Right.
And it's just so beautifully done. And, it's got all the paperwork in back. It's all authenticated. But the day he autographs that would be kind of a pipe dream for me. That's something it's a bucket list thing.
Yeah. I know that, and it's not equal, I know that, but when I sign my signature a lot, it changes.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm signing a whole bunch of checks here at the office, when I was signing documents at the county, you get tired. You sign your name 50 or 60 times. The angle of your hand changes, the the muscles in your hand get tired. And it's like, God, that doesn't even look like me. Sometimes I got to redo it. It's so bad. But how does an authenticator know, hey, that was really Todd signing all of those, or LeBron or Tiger, whoever, and it wasn't just him signing the 300th autographed and his hand was just tired, but he really did put pen to paper.
And that's what they're
paid,
do? That's what they're paid to do.
Okay.
And I know in these days you'll see several versions of an autograph. For instance, a lot of the new people who are coming in and they're signing their name like thousands of times.
Right.
They're just getting to a point where they're putting initials on a card, which is crazy. Like I was looking at Fernando Mendoza, for instance, and he's just putting like FM. They're on your radio dial.
Yes.
But just FM. And there's other things I've seen of his where it's actually more than just it's a signature. So it's unique, and sometimes they put inscriptions on cards now, and they're like Caleb Williams has a card, for instance. I'm a huge Caleb Williams fan, but
Is he the real deal?
He is the real deal.
Okay,
yeah,
good. Good for Chicago.
Chicago's found its answer.
Good, they needed one.
One of his most noted cards that is in such high demand is it's a card where he signed his name, and below it he wrote "Green Bay sucks." With exclamation points, right? So doing that made that one card, there's a bounty for that card.
Right.
Like somebody's willing to pay $50,000, $100,000 just to acquire that card because it's one of a kind. And I've seen that multiple times over. And no, I don't own it, and I sure wish I did.
But I mean, I don't know if you've ever signed a baseball or a football. It's a curved surface. Baseballs are even harder. They're smaller. But I mean, your signature is just different. So that's where those authenticators know, hey, that really was Fernando Valenzuela who signed his name on here. And
absolutely.
We're reasonably okay.
Ryan, do you have any 10s?
I do. I have several 10s. One of the cards that I'm actually really, really excited about and most proud to own is I'm a big Bryson DeChambeau fan. So I have a White Mojo Panini Prism autographed Bryson DeChambeau card that It's numbered to 36, but it's the only one in existence that has a 10-10 from Beckett, meaning that it is 10 on the autograph, 10 on the condition of the card, and it's been autographed. And it is probably the most beautiful signature of any person I've ever seen. You can imagine Bryson DeChambeau taking like his time and making something so,
especially with a name like that.
well, I mean, he's like the mad scientist, but he's also, he's so particular about so many things. And you see it in a signature. And so that card is a population 1. I have the only one.
And you're a golfer.
And I'm a golfer, so I'm passionate about that.
Right.
Yes.
Did that answer your question? Is that the most prized collectible that you have, or is it your tiger print or tiger photograph, whatever you described it as? Is that, or maybe a jersey somewhere that you're really kind of like?
Yeah, so I would say there's a card that I acquired recently that I'm very excited about, and it is a LeBron James 2005 Upper Deck SP. So it's a short print card that has game day used material. This is his second year in the league, LeBron. And I think
it seems like he's been there for longer than that.
God, he's been
Yeah,
it's been a long
goes
time.
away.
He never goes away, but his legacy is cemented.
Right.
There is very few things that he can do at this point to make his value go down. Nobody's going to catch his scoring title.
Right.
There's so many records that will never be broken. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame. He's going to retire. These are the types of things that are going to make cards increase in value over time when you have that type of legacy. So I acquired this card, which is out of 100, and it was only released for a very limited time back in 2005. It is not currently graded. It's about to go in for grading. I'm expecting it to get somewhere around like a 9. I think it'll do really well. I think it should do pretty good there. And if that's the case, this is a card that will probably reach, it's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $14,000 in a 9. But over time, if you just hold on to it and you make it a long-term hold, something like this, you let his stock drive the price of the card. So, I mean, we've seen this with Jordan cards, cards that with Jordan were only worth $50 at one time that are now worth $250,000 because of age and time and rarity.
Do you assign a value to it when you sell it, or your asking price?
Yeah.
Or does the market, let's say you have a card of whatever, and Eli says, I want to buy it. And you say, well, that's a $300 card. And Eli says, well, I'm only going to pay $250 because that's what the authenticators are saying. I think your point is, well, then you're not going to buy my card because my card's $300. Is that kind of how it works? Or do you say, well, all right, the authenticators...
So I choose to run my business where there's not greed involved.
Okay.
Greed can take over a sale, and it'll drop a sale in a minute. So for me, I'm going to look at the comps on a card. Now, if the comps on a card, you can search comps through like several different sources.
Right.
Card Ladder, eBay, all these other places that you want to go. I will look at the comps on the card, and I'm always going to try to come in under. Now, there's times where it's the right player at the right time, and his market is just thriving, and there's no need to discount that rate for somebody if they want to acquire it that badly because his stock is going to rise dramatically in the coming weeks or months or whatever. And so that's in those cases, you want to get as much as you can for those cards. Okay, the housing market's probably very similar. It's all timing, right? It's all timing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all
Finding a ready, willing, and able buyer sets the market, sets the price.
Correct. So I let them set the price for the most part. But I'm a very fair seller on my Whatnot stream. I will always start cards at a much lower price and let the room dictate what it goes to. A lot of people that I see don't do that, and they just have a high number that they want for it. It's usually because they acquire it for too much. They spend a lot of money acquiring it. My goal is to not have spent that much money acquiring it so that I can sell it for a fair price.
I think what I'm picking up is this is your business.
Yes.
And that's the difference between just a casual collector and someone saying, oh, it's worth $300. And you know that it's only worth $250 or vice versa or whatever. And you've got your integrity. You've got your word. This is not a one-time transaction for you.
Correct.
Again, it's your business or your reputation. And so you want people to come back time and time again and say, hey, when Ryan sells me something, I can trust that
Yeah.
he's, he's telling me the truth,
Yes.
or the truth that he knows, and that. Hey everybody, this is your host, Todd Dantzler. As most of you know, I'm a partner with Saunders Real Estate and have been a very active and working broker for over 42 years. I have fostered strong relationships throughout the state of Florida, working on properties ranging from agriculture and development land to multifamily, commercial, and industrial projects. If you have any real estate needs at all, please give me a call. I'd love to help. My direct line is 863-877-2846. Thank you. What's the difference between a licensed and an unlicensed card? Is that is that something? I wrote that down when we were talking.
Yeah, really, really good question. And this is opening some people's eyes to what that actually means. And licensed cards means that the NFL or the NBA or whoever, whichever sporting organization is releases cards, they're picking like Topps or Panini to license their cards, meaning you could put the jersey on there, you can put all of these things that make it a legit card. Also the player's likeness, which they get royalties for the things they sign. Okay. Those are called licensed cards when you've got an organization that represents your brand, NFL, NBA, and so on. When you don't have an agreement with a company, which there's several companies out there that had them and now they don't have them, they have to print cards where the jersey doesn't even have the name of the team on it. That was a couple of years ago when you were looking at the Topps Chrome cards and you were getting, Dwayne Wade and Steph Curry and Shaquille O'Neal cards and all these things. And it's just a blank jersey with the right colors, but nothing that said Warriors or Heat or anything like that. It's strange to look at a player that way. Now, I deal a lot in a brand called Wildcard. Wildcard is actually an unlicensed brand, but the players license their likeness to Wildcard. So you're going to get a lot of the very famous names out there, and you're going to have an easier time finding their autographs and their limited number cards, and they come up with really cool variations of those cards. The reason I really like Wildcard is because everything about them is limited. Everything is really difficult to comp. Okay, so when you only have a 1 of 1 or a 1 of 3 or a 1 of 10, well, how many ways can you comp a 1 of 1?
Right.
You can't. You set the price.
Right.
So if I'm selling to a fan, they're going to dictate what they're willing to pay for it, and I'm okay with that, as opposed to having them go on a source and say, well, 10 of these have sold for this price, so I want that price.
Right.
No, you're going to pay because you're a fan and you love the card and the player.
So I want to ask one last question about collecting before we get into
Sure.
the last section, which is what I really want to talk about, is how would you suggest to someone who's listening right now that may not be a collector, how would you suggest they, whether it's a father, son, mother, daughter, mother, son, whoever, or just brothers or sisters or family members, hey, let's start collecting. What would you advise them to do to pick what type of thing? And how would they get started in this?
I would advise them to proceed with caution. I say that because it's become a very expensive hobby to get started in. It's not like the old days where you walk in and you buy a pack for $1 or $2 or $3. And the cards were inexpensive and they were mass produced and everything else, right?
And you got a piece of gum with them.
Yeah, you got a piece of gum, which was delicious till it wasn't. And then
3 seconds.
3 seconds is about right. And today it is just you better be prepared for what it costs to invest in a card. Just even a singular card, it can be very expensive. A pack of cards could be $20, $25. A box of cards can be $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $500, $600 for packs. But most of the time what comes out of the packs and the boxes doesn't equate to what you paid for it.
Right.
So you just go down this rabbit hole until one day you've got all these cards laying around that you have no idea what to do with. You don't understand how you spent as much money as you did, and then you call me to buy your collection. So that's the carousel that it's on.
Okay. I mean, can kids get into this anymore? It doesn't sound like it's a business for kids to get into. You kind of have to be a little bit more sophisticated, have some resources, and you're not just getting that $1 pack of gum with a couple of cards in it like it used to be.
Yeah, there's some really smart kids out there too, and
Right.
I will give some of these kids credit. They're very smart at using their social media presence, their ability to connect with a younger buyer. And a lot of kids have been given a green light by some, parents to buy what they want and invest in what they want, and
Right.
they want to do it as a joint venture where they buy. I see them all the time at card shows. A lot of father sons, a lot of even daughters. Some mothers are involved in it.
Right.
There's a lot of streaming partners like that. So I'm seeing more and more of it. But the funding of it certainly is going to come from more the parents than the
Right.
child, and so. It's a beautiful joint venture and a great thing to do with your kids.
So sometimes golf lessons are a lot less expensive than going to some of these collectible things.
100%.
So before we go, I want to talk about your one-day business solution. When you mentioned that at dinner the other night, and then we talked about it more in depth a week or so ago. Tell us what that is and how it can help business folks. I thought it was a very intriguing idea and a very neat concept that you have.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate that. That was something that I took a lot of pride in because I spent probably the better part of a month really trying to put pen to paper and say, where is there a need in Polk County, the place that I love so much, that I could make an impact for small business owners? Because small business is what I really love. It's
what you are, too.
Yeah, it's what we are, right? So what is it that I can do to help? So I came up with an idea. And that idea for me was one-day business solutions. Small businesses have a hard time, and I'm sure you can attest to this and know people who are in these situations. Small businesses have a hard time putting all their eggs in one basket for a solution and saying like, hey, if this works, great. But if it doesn't work, my business is going to fold,
Right?
because I'm putting so much into this solution. And consultants, in many ways, shape, or form, they make that a proposition. It's a long-term contract. It's an expensive proposition.
Yes.
So if you were to walk into a restaurant and get a proposition for $40,000 or $50,000 and a few months of service, and it doesn't work, that business is probably going to fold.
Right.
So my goal was to take my wisdom, my experience, my 25 years of business that I've accumulated and all the different things that I've done successfully, and go into a business for an 8-hour day rate. The day's going to start with me having an interview just like you and I are having with the owner of the business, probably one of the managers as well. Over that time, I'll spend time talking to the staff. I'll be looking at the aesthetics. I'll be looking at logistics. I'll be talking to them about their turn, their margins. Be looking at, all the different little things, potentially staffing, that we could do to move the needle in the right direction. Okay. I go in. Currently, the rate for me to go in there is $900 for a day, for one day. 10% of that day rate is going to go back to philanthropy. So that's just something I set right from the beginning, because we know that the lifeblood of our county
Right.
drives on philanthropy and charity, and that's a very important aspect. So I have that conversation with the owner. Where do you want your 10% to go? And ultimately, we start the day connecting in a very good way, and I think that's very important, earning that trust and knowing that we're going to be friends right from the beginning.
Right.
So I'm there to certainly help them through these things. I give them an analysis at the end of the day. If I fix everything that I can fix in that day, I give suggestions to network partners and affiliates, people that I communicate with, and we essentially work together to establish points that go in their direction and help move their business upwards and onwards for a small investment.
Do you then give them another day to follow up, or do you typically say, okay, here's your plan?
Yeah.
It's only going to work like any small business if you're going to make it work.
Of course.
There's only so much you can do. You can point out, you can make recommendations, but unless that owner makes the changes or implements the things that you're suggesting,
Correct.
it ain't going to work either.
Absolutely. So the blessing of it all is that most of the time they don't need me for another day.
Okay.
And they're just looking for marginal points, right? They're not looking for me to take their business apart. They're looking for me to identify the things that they're not seeing. And a lot of times I can see those things in that 8-hour
Fresh eyes.
fresh eyes, right? So I mean that's something that this business does not exist anywhere else. It is not a platform that currently exists. I'm excited that I'm able to launch that here in Polk County. We have done some work. We have done some jobs. We've had some success. And I'm just looking forward to rolling it out a little bit more here in the future. But as you can see, I'm pretty well diversified.
Right.
I stay very busy every day. And life is frankly just a blessing. And this is a very scalable business, One Day Business Solutions. It's something that doesn't have to just take place in Polk County. I can gladly 1099 people across Central Florida and let them work their own territories and let them do days and give back to philanthropy through my contributions to that. And together we can help small business thrive and succeed and compete with the big boys.
Do you just do small businesses, or do you say, okay, I'm not going to do anything more than a 10 employee group, or 50 or 100 people? It's just too big of a company for one day. You really need more time.
I want to cap it at something that I can put my eyes on in one day. And that's by design. It's also for myself. It's for making sure that I've reprioritized my life in a way where, hey, I want to be around my family more. I want to be around my kid more. I want to be present a little bit more. And I think that just the alignment of that really makes a lot of sense. And for me not to be taken away for weeks at a time or months at a time and never focused on what's going on at home because I'm too busy on the business. Frankly, I think this is a win-win for the small business, but also my quality of life and my family's.
So if some business has maybe 2 owners and 3 division managers or 3 VPs or whatever, can you do something like that where you split your time with those 3 VPs, and then do you do succession planning, or is it really just, I want to try and help you figure out how to make what you're doing now work better rather than how to plan for something down the road?
Succession planning is definitely part of the staffing aspect that I look at, and I try to look at the infrastructure of how a business is aligned. Where are we putting? How much pressure are we putting on certain people within the chain? Right, like what are their tasks, and can they actually finish them?
And can they handle that pressure?
Can they do it efficiently? So I'm looking at all of this, and that's part of interviewing the staff and really getting a good sense of just what the layout looks like. Because some people just don't listen. They'll tell you something, but it goes in one ear and out the other.
Right.
And they don't make the changes that are necessary to help business grow. So it's just me there as a kind of a reaffirming position, saying that, if it's going to grow, you're going to need to look at these changes.
If someone wants to get in touch with you
to
say, hey, Ryan, can you talk to me about the One Day Business Solution, or I got some collectibles, how do people find you?
I think best way to get a hold of me is probably through email or phone. But my number hasn't changed in 25, 30 years at least. But email is very simple for me. It's Ryan, RYAN, .McKellen, MCKELLEN @gmail.com. So very, very simple. Feel free to reach out to me, and I will be more than happy to talk to you about any future endeavors that you're looking to accomplish.
Is there anything, we've kind of talked about a bunch of really neat stuff today. I mean, I really enjoyed the show. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you said, God, Todd, I really wish you would have asked me about that? Or, hey, we did a pretty good job today. Maybe another episode.
No, we did great. Listen,
more.
Todd, you're fantastic, and thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. So, if there's anything else that I would love to just, give a little bit of wisdom to the people who are listening. I think that's very, very important, that people are doing things in life that they are passionate about. Sometimes you don't even realize you're unhappy somewhere.
Right.
Until you start doing something that you're actually passionate about and it doesn't feel like work anymore, right? So my goal was to really diversify myself and do things that I'm passionate about and try to make a living with that. And it's gone beautifully. It's gone absolutely fantastically. We're in a cash grab world right now.
Right.
It is a world where at our fingertips, there's a million different ways to go grab income and to provide and to live. And I love that. I love that that's present right now. Because who knows like how short-lived certain areas are going to be, right? Like, is what not going to be there in 5 years for me? I don't really know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't be. You better go out and do it while you can and really enjoy it, right? I just think it's really, really important that you do that. And I would challenge everybody out there to take an hour and sit down by yourself, no distractions, and write down on paper all the different things that you're really great at, and explore, what can I do to make money doing it? where it's just on the side, where it's something simple, where it's just your time. Or maybe you have to invest in a pallet of goods and list them a certain way and make money on that pallet, right? Whatever it is, there's a million different ways to do it. You got to get out there. You can't sit around. It's not going to come to you. You've got to go find it.
You know, what you're describing is you got to follow your passion.
You do. You got to follow your passion.
I mean, that's come out in everything that you've talked about, at all that your endeavors that you've talked about, that you've done in your life.
You bet.
I think that's, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you just end up with responsibilities and say, hey, I got to make payroll. Hey, I got to make rent. Hey, I got to make a car payment or buy shoes for the kids or whatever. And, you know, I think if you can get to that point where you can take a few minutes to kind of figure out things, I think that's a wonderful position to be in.
Yeah, Todd, my golf career is a great example of that, right? And I know we didn't really touch on that too much, but that was something that for me back in the mid 2000s, and I grew up, you know, being the kid that won a lot of tournaments and went to high school and played number one and went to college and played number one and had a little success here and there. But it got to a point for me where I had to make a decision, like, do I waste this talent that I have and go into a career that I'm not so sure about? Or do I actually take the time and really invest in myself and try this golf career? And at some point you've got to, you know, come out of your shell and you got to make the move. And so I did. And, you know, I moved to Texas around that time. And, you know, I took an odd job that like paid some of the bills and some of the entry fees and like graveyard shift type work, just so I could wake up and have the funds to practice and have tournament entry fees, right? And I played on many, many different mini tours. So did the Golden Bear Tour, did Adams Tight Lies Tour, the Hooters Tour, did the Nationwide Tour, and had some success. Played in a lot of big games at country clubs, things like that, had a lot of success. And then unfortunately, my career was cut a little bit short. I had a career-ending injury where I shattered my wrist while I was in the final round of a Nationwide Tour tournament. And it was a horrific injury that had a lot of nerve damage in the wrist, and to this day I still live with it and still experience quite a bit of pain.
Can you play?
Yes, I still play to a really low handicap. So
if anyone needs a ringer, you are available for a small fee.
Yeah, there's several people.
Maybe a rare bottle of bourbon, they can get you on their team, or some cards. Or
that would
something.
be the price of entry.
Let you rummage through their card collection.
Yeah.
All right, well, good.
But no, we have a great time, and I play a lot of tournaments, and always happy to join a team that needs some help. So.
Well, Ryan, thank you for coming in. This has been really neat and interesting. It's a great world of collecting out there that a lot of people can do. You don't have to be athletic to do it. You can just be passionate about it, just with so many other things. And I appreciate you opening our eyes up to us. And I mean, my suggestion is go out to your parents' garage and see what box may have a whole bunch of dust on it, or other boxes on top of it. You never know what treasures may be in there.
Yep, maybe your grandparents' garage.
That's right.
That would be even better. I promise you, if you find a box in there, you're probably in for some hidden treasures. But yes.
Well, Ryan, thank you for coming by. I appreciate you coming in and telling us some interesting things, what's going on, and being on this edition of Todd's podcast. I want to thank all the listeners for listening today. We do appreciate it. I hope you'll share this. I hope you'll subscribe, you'll follow. I hope you'll share this with your 4,000 or 5,000 folks, Ryan. And, you know, we're trying to get our word out as well. And Eli, I appreciate you being here again. And I'm not going to give him your address because I don't want him over there rummaging through your bourbon collection. And Sarah and Aubrey will definitely not get your address because they will be in your backyard like a couple of raccoons. So
sure.
Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time on Todd's podcast. Thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. This has been your host, Todd Dantzler. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to rate, review, follow, and subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you have any questions for me, suggestions for future guests, or are interested in sponsorship opportunities for our podcast, please just fill out the contact form on my website, todddantzler.com. I look forward to hearing your questions and feedback, and please take care.